One of the things that Charles Dickens said about France during the Revolution was it was the best of times and it was the worst of times. And then he said we were all going to heaven and we were all going to that other place. I think this time that we're living in is the best of times. It's also the worst of times. And to ask the question, where are we going, depends on the individual. When people say to me, you're too liberal, and then I get other people say you're too conservative, I have to question the questioner more than his remark. Why are you too liberal, or why are you too conservative? I have to ask the person, why do you think I'm too conservative, or why do you think I'm too liberal? Because some people tell me I'm too conservative and other people tell me I'm too liberal, and you're going to confuse me. I'm just trying to be true to my own understanding. And if you blame me for that or challenge what's in my heart, you can't challenge what's in my heart, because by the grace of God, only God knows what's in the heart. Even the devil doesn't know what's in your heart. So when we ask the question, where are we going, we can ask it at a metaphysical level, but I want to look at where are we going at the level of being in finite bodies in this world, not the afterlife, because none of us can answer that question. As Muslims, I know that there's certain strains of Christianity that will say, we're definitely going to heaven, and they're all going to hell. And I've actually read in one Christian book about Islam, he said one of the worst things about Islam is they actually don't know whether they're going to heaven or not. Ask any Muslim, are you absolutely 100% sure you're going to heaven? And they'll say, I'm not. And they say, but thank God, because we're Christians, we know we're going to heaven. That's a different way of looking at where you're going. In terms of this country and where we are today, in some ways, we're so much better than we have ever been as a nation. Let me give you one example. African Americans, most of the African Americans in the United States today have ancestors that were brought to this country in chains. And this was not seen as something wrong or immoral, except by a very small group of British people and American, mostly Unitarians. There were pamphlets written by Jews, by Christians, not only justifying that black people were the accursed descendants of Ham, and therefore this was their fate, but that the Bible justified the conditions of slavery in the United States. That was not that long ago, people. In the 1950s, when Eisenhower was president, African Americans could not drink from the same drinking fountains as white people in many states in this country. It's hard for people here to imagine that, but there are people here that are alive today that don't know the history of this country. That's not old history, it's recent history. That most people of color in the United States of America 50 years ago had the option of being a janitor, a night watchman, a maid, a servant. These were the options. That is no longer the case. There is a man of color in the White House that was white for over 200 years. That house was white for over 200 years. So things have changed. To deny that change in this country, those positive changes, is to deny an aspect of America that is very important. So from that perspective, things are much better. That's just one example, and I could give many other examples. But from other aspects of the United States, there are very troubling signs going on in this country right now. Let me give you an example. In the FBI, they issue certain guidelines for determining extremists. One of the recent guidelines was if they talk too much about restoring the U.S. Constitution, that's considered extremism or a sign of extremism, because there are certain peoples in this country that are very troubled by a lot of the rights in the Constitution and aspects of the Constitution that have been trampled upon. Their very trouble. The right to be free of illegal search and seizure without probable cause. The fact that people can now be patted down. I was in an airport and my 6-year-old child, I almost went to blows because I've got a lot of Irish blood. And I was in an airport and this guy wanted to pat my 6-year-old child down. And I told him, you're not laying your hand on that boy. And if you do, you better get your taser out. I'm telling you the truth. And he got very offended. And I said, look, I actually wrote a paper on pornography in this country, and I know the statistics of pedophilia. And I'm not accusing you, but I don't know you. You are a stranger. And when I was a kid, my mother told me, watch out for strangers. So I don't want you touching my child. Now, if you want to bring a lady out here, if she has to check a 6-year-old boy, then I'll let you, because statistics show women don't molest little kids. They might aid and abet a molester, but they don't do it because that humanity is still intact. For me, that is a complete, gross, and egregious trampling of my right as a parent to protect my child. What kind of a world are we in when a 6-year-old has to be patted down? What kind of experience is that for a 6-year-old child? People don't think about these things, but this is the world they're growing up in. When I was a young boy, the whole family went to the gate in the airport. You remember that? Imam Qasim? Imam Zayd? Imam Siraj? That was the America we grew up in. You went to the gate to see your family off. There was no, you didn't have to stand in front of a machine that was going to basically undress you for some stranger to look at you. Now, let me give you an example of the problem of wealth in this country. I was with a group of very wealthy Saudi Arabians, and we went to a private airport in the United States of America not that long ago. This was a few years ago. We got onto a private jet. Our baggage had no check. We didn't have to put them through any machines or anything. We just got on the plane. And I'm thinking, here's Saudi Arabians, because they have a lot of money, they can hire private jets, and they don't have to go through any of this security. What does that say about our country? What does that say about our country? We have so many contradictions in the United States, and until we as a people start dealing with the contradictions of this country, the disparities between the powerful and the powerless, between the enfranchised and the disenfranchised, between the rich and the poor, until we start really looking at who we are as a people, we are not dealing with reality. We're living in bubbles, and those bubbles will eventually burst.